I am your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and this is Black Minds News Report. Black Minds News is to report, articulate, transmit, communicate, insinuate, develop, investigate, decode, unveil, spread the news, whether it's by news, video, website, or quotes from publications. As I articulate this information, I ask that the creator of the universe be here, heart, soul, mind, and spirit. Because why? The truth don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people who created this place that you call the United States, we, the BADOS, Black American descendants of slaves, we, today's children, offspring, and present generation, we give honor to our ancestors. You know what the motto of my show is? I'm never going to tell you what I heard. I'm only going to tell you what I know. Today's date is February 11th, 2020. Did you hear? Did you hear about what went on in Brooklyn, New York? A black institution created by a fellow pioneer decided to set up a place where those in the vicinity of New York and abroad who had advocacy, wanted to be participants in the art, created a place to come. And it seems that in 2020, this place has been seized on by the process to, maybe there was some malicious intent behind it. Because I did the story, seen some things, kind of questioned as to the validity of it, and are there other dynamics that accelerated it due to the simple fact between the individual you're going to see in here and what unfolds. So we, Black Minds News, decided that we were going to disseminate this information for those who might be interested in it. So just stay tuned as we get into this report. Hey, how's y'all doing again? This is your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and welcome to Black Minds News Report. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to the fam, my subscribers. What's good, y'all? I told you I'm back. Gonna start coming and pumping them on the regular. Finding things out here that I need to report. But I want to thank you for staying and not unsubscribing. We Black Minds News thank each and every one of you kindly and thanking. Brand new ones, welcome again. If you should just happen to subscribe, we will start putting names of subscribers across the screen when you are newly subscribed subscriber to the show. We will attach your name to the next present show to show your support. So, and those who have done before, I will eventually put yours out there as well, and all that. Right? We're gonna get in there. So, passerbys, if you happen to pass by, this is the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. Go down the aisle, see some things that you might like, see something that might make you feel some kind of way. Remember that the motto of the show is the truth don't need no partner. Now, this particular story here, like I said, black institutions, you know, you have people who are advocating for black business, black economics, so we could be self-independent. And you think that just saying it and then doing the work to obtain it, that is just that easy, right? But this story here is going to show you that you can do all the right things as the founder. But if your institution has a sole black agenda without any interference with other entities, you might be on the radar as how we're going to take that out of your hands. Some people hear this and they don't believe that, so they just say, well, that wouldn't happen to me. Well, if you don't dot your I's, cross all your T's, put every period that is needed, somebody who might be observing you, even though you don't think nobody's observing, because there's some people who believe that you can build certain things and that somehow no one is paying attention. Because everybody says stacking your paper and so you can build. But if you're not understanding how, again, I'm actually going to drop the video so that when I'm talking about this, it won't be something that you haven't heard over here. How technology was designed as a database to watch certain black people in its origin. It wasn't about what we have turned it into. And look at how the media, black media, has, let's say, report from our perspective that affect people who's supposed to be the general media and not liking that we have a voice and have to try to douse that fire out by reversing the position. And so what I'm saying is, well, when we do business, when we're trying to get property, then we have to look at this situation, because history is supposed to be an indicator to not just know the history, but see where the flaws are in history so that we don't make the same mistakes. We can't afford to be trying to move forward when somebody's always trying to find a back door to make you start all over again. And then those who come behind, who don't have all the knowledge of the game prior to them, then they're trying to sift through, but by that time it might be too late. So again, I want you to see this story here that I came up with, and let's get into this, and I'll be back afterwards. Check this out. Check this out. But again, as this being Black History Month, I think it would only be fair that I had to put some things that are relating to black history. But this one particularly, because again, as I just said, I've seen a lot of people who come on who do shows in the black corner of YouTube. And this one in particular, I was just thinking, as I always do when I see certain situations, is there any correlation, connection to the individual that you're about to see and hear? And I did some research, and the whole business of it just gonna trip you out. So first, let me go ahead and let me show you this. Get everything set up. Are we good over there? We good? You sure? All right, let's do it then. Let's go ahead and get and do what we do over here, right? So let's go ahead and start the show out, right? Let's get it. Are we good? Make sure we good, man. We won't be, not do it, right? Get it right, man. Because, what I'm saying, people been anticipating and waiting. So let's get it right. Check this out, y'all. We'll be right back.
Controversy is brewing in Crown Heights after the Black Lady Theater suddenly shut down, and its leadership says they've been locked out. And now they're rallying to take back control of what they claim is rightfully theirs. News 12 Brooklyn's Tony Chow brings us more.
There has been an attack on our institution.
One that goes back 36 years. Since 1984, the Black Lady Theater has been home to activism and the arts, like hip-hop artist Lord Jamar's Unadamine Godcast.
Spaces like this are few and far between. Black Lady Theater is a fixture in this community.
But now its future is up in the air, with the city marshal locking the doors and seizing the property. According to city records, it was purchased in a foreclosure sale last February.
We were never notified of this supposed sale. Government agencies denied us the opportunity to defend ourselves and our property.
The theater's leaders say its founder, Judge John Phillips Jr., entrusted them with the property before he died in 2008. City records don't show that paper trail. An omission, theater supporters say, was done intentionally and maliciously.
They have used defective paperwork and administrative tactics to displace us.
With nowhere left to turn, the theater supporters vow to continue fighting for what they say is a vital part of the community.
We need the Black Lady Theater. She has been a mother to the motherless. She has been a home to the homeless.
Now it's the theater that finds itself without a home. In Crown Heights, Tony Chow, News 12, Brooklyn.
Staff rallies to save the Black Lady Theater. You know I'm going to say that again. Staff rallies to save the Black Lady Theater. This story was done in News 12 Brooklyn, January 21st, 2020, and this is how it reads. Since 1984, the Black Lady Theater has been home to activism and the arts, and now its future is up in the air. The city marshal locked the door on the Crown Heights Theater and seized the property according to city records. It was purchased in a foreclosure sale last February. We were never notified of this supposed sale. Government agencies deny us the opportunity to defend ourselves and our property, said owner Omar Hardy. The theater's leader said its founder, Judge John Phillips Jr., entrusted them with the property before he died in 2008. City records don't show that paper trail. With nowhere left to turn, the theater supporters say they vow to continue fighting for what they say is a vital part of the community. News 12 reached out to the buyer of the property on multiple phone numbers, but was unable to reach him. A woman at one of the number did pick up, but hung up when News 12 asked to leave a message. Alright, so we are back again. The Black Lady Theater that is in Brooklyn, New York. Look like the theater in itself has been seized by the system. And according to, as you just heard me read the article, as well as you've seen the video displaying of the news story that took place. Yeah, turn that down. I think that might be heard. Okay, that'd be good. All right, fine. So we see that the Black Lady Theater actually was the founder who created and owned originally was Judge John L. Phillips Jr. He was also known as the Kung Fu Judge because he was a 10th degree black belt. He was a civil court judge. He died at the age of 83, and I think that the Black Lady Theater was created in 1984, so it's been around about 36 years. Accordingly, for some of the information that I did find about Mr. Judge John L. Phillips Jr., that he owned about $10 million in property in the Bedford-Stuyvesant area, where he had 2 theaters. One was called the Slave Theater, or the Slave, and then he had several apartment buildings. He named the Slave Theater so that no one would forget of our struggles, right? And that the theater was the stage in some of the 80s and some of the things that were going on. This is where blacks activists were used for rallies, press conference, and it was also for the new crops of black activists that were to be coming, right? And as I was doing some research about this, I found out that that Mr. John L. Phillips Jr., there's some shadiness that when you look at the history of what took place, when it looks like that the court system ended up declaring Mr. Judge John L. Phillips Jr. as with dementia, so meaning he needed some guardianship. And it looks like that the court had appointed guardianship over him and his property, because according to the information that I had doing my research, is he was childless, he was not married. If there was a will, no will existed, according to what they say. Now, again, we as black minds, and we see things, and we kind of know that we've seen with Michael Jackson, there was some discrepancy about whether his will was either exact a fact, whether it either exists or not. We heard Prince as well, Aretha Franklin. And it seems that the people like this have come and gone, and we have seen their life behind. You would think that if you have something to be inheritable to other people, that would be in order. But in the case here, it seems like, based on the property, as they said, the research that I came up said about $10 million of property that Mr. Phillips Jr. had. And so being in New York, and in the way that this whole thing, when I looked at the background, the people who became awarded as guardians were something that happened in 2001, where I think he decided that he wanted to run against one of the comers at the time for some, I think it was some position. I think his name was Charles Hines. And so what Hines did, I guess, is so that he would not run against him, maybe because him being a judge and being favored in the theater and so forth, that I guess you probably couldn't beat him on population. So what ended up happening, I think it was some investigation that was done by Charles Haynes. And what ended up happening was that they end up declaring, declared that Mr. Phillips was incompetent, right? And that's when the court had to go ahead and appointed him the guardians who took over his affairs. And so the article that I got this from is from the New York Times, coming on February 19th of 2008. And what it talks about is that those who were seen to be of his guardianship seemed to have been on the side of the individual who he ran against. And end up later on that the person who became the lawyer, what they use in the term in real estate is called commingle, which you're not supposed to be able to do, which is your personal funds in the same way you're supposed to be holding reserves. Because I think it was in 2012, they had put the Black Theater up for sale, according to what the information that I got. Somebody put down $200,000, and somehow that money was siphoned out into personals with the individual and squandered the money And it seems to be now, as you've seen in the clip there, the individual said that he is the owner, right? You've seen with the individual there who said he was the owner of the Black Lady Theater. And so it being a pillar in the community in Brooklyn, that the way that they end up doing it seems to be in some shakiness to it, right? And so what I was looking at, the fact is, I had seen, as you've seen in the video, they showed Lord Jamal, right? And not too long ago, Lord Jamal had been kind of, trending in social media. And what he was trending on is the simple fact that he decided to make it known that he felt a particular kind of way about Eminem. And those who might know what I'm talking about, right? And so let me show you the again, let me just give you the picture part to what they were showing, right? They were showing there, you've seen Lord Jamal was right there in the front, and they gave a little snippet of him, and they cut him real quick. And so, sometimes when you kind of an inquisitive thinking or person, you try to analyze things and try to make how A, B, C, and D, you try to connect all the dots. And based on the way that they told in this story that you just heard, was that this theater, the Black Lady Theater, or the Slave 2, could be another name that goes along with it, that somehow that on December 30th of 2019, you seen the document that was there, said the eviction was given on 12/30/2019, and accordingly had been purchased in February of 2019, which is about 10 months later. And so as the story told you, that they tried to get in contact with the person of the numbers that they had, and they ended up getting in contact with a lady, and then once it was 12 News announced that it was them and they wanted to leave a message, the person hung up. And so I'm saying, well, could it be, and again, I'm not pointing any fingers to say that this is the cause and effect to why, but maybe somebody is doing this because, again, when we come out here and we make statements and bring truths, truth don't rub everybody in the right way. And there's a lot of people who are offended that we are actually using these platforms as a story that I did that you haven't heard yet, but it was talking about how when you look at technology and the creation of technology going back to, they say, the 60s, and it's coming about due to the simple fact of the Negro problem. I'll say that again. The Negro problem that is this country has always dealt with. So they talked about there was a Negro problem that was over in the Caribbeans, right? There was a Negro problem in other places, and then there was a Negro problem here in the 60s. And accordingly, they said that the president of the time were trying to come up with computerized data to store on individuals, because again, remember, they're labeling those of the 60s against their protesting as rebel rousers and troublemakers, and to make, because if you've been around for a time before there was this so-called standard, what we say, technology that is now more prevalent now in the hands of the average individual. There used to be a time when you went to certain places to have to get records, or they had to retrieve your records. They had somebody who would go back into a room that was filled with nothing but files and had to manually sift through trying to, hopefully that the person who is putting stuff back has put it in this correct alphabet, remember the card catalogs going to the library? For those who went to the library, had things go in alphabetical order. Well, the same way the files was. And so technology helped to make that a lot simpler. But that's not what it was really about. Again, they say that the origin of it is coming from the fact that trying to create the database on those, again, the Negro problem. And this is systemic, goes all the way to what they call Silicon Valley. And for a lot of people may not know that Silicon Valley and the drug trade was synonymous because they needed them to come up with more technological ways, and so they needed higher thoughts. So they were, using a lot of cocaine in Silicon Valley. That a lot of them are addicts. Still to this day, you can look up right now and you'll see that they come with smart pills, which is just nothing but drugs that has been somehow classified as supplements or dietary nutrition, right? That's what they do. See, but when the drug trade, when you see the history of that, what was taking place in California, when they talk about Freeway Ricky and D'Angelo Bandon and that whole thing with the Contra, a lot of that had to do with Silicon Valley, according to what they were saying. And in that breeded them with this competitive edge with each other, trying to come up with who would come up the next biggest ideal. But again, looking at everything that who's hiring you is looking for a certain thing that they need. The innovation was coming out through the elevation that they believe of using the drugs, which is really creating black software. You get what I'm saying? So this is where the black software comes in at. And so here is a Black Lady Theater that is known from its history of basically supporting activists and giving them a place to speak, a place for the community to become empowered with their blackness. And here we have Lord Jamal in this day and age who said some things that it's not going to be a question whether it did or didn't, but we're going to believe that it did. It rubbed white folks in a wrong way. Well, what are you talking about, Mr. Blows Your Mind? Well, maybe you remember this. Huh? When Lord Jamal puts Eminem on blast, says black people don't listen to him. Right? Right? There was this feud or this beef, they say, was going between Lord Jamal and Eminem. So, when you look at this, it talks about how Lord Jamal saying that Eminem in the streets of the club, that, black folks don't listen to Eminem. That's what he was saying, right? And calling his music whack, his voice was whack. These are all the things that you can go look up. I think it was May 16, 2019 is one of them articles in there. And Lord Jamal has said some things to the fact that he said, we're the originators. We don't listen to Eminem. His success comes from the commercialization. It can't call him king and circumvent the true kingdom. While people crown him because he sold the most records sold of all rappers. That's why they say he gave them he's got his crown, right? And then we see that there was the album that I think Eminem had created called Fall Off, his Kamikaze album. He called I guess it's called Fall Off, right? And in the song, it supposedly had made some reference to Lord Jamal as to he better leave him alone, or he'll show you an Elvis clone. Walk up in this house you own, thrust his pelvic bone, use your telephone, and go fetch me the remote. He said, put my feet up and just make myself at home. I belong here, clown. Don't tell me about the culture. So here was Lord Jamal, who was from Brand Nubians, goes back and, he's a solidified rapper of that time. But he's attacking what those trying to, again, as he's saying, has made himself proclaim as the crown, the king. And so with all the people who, based on, again, people who don't understand that sometimes when somebody white is put into your culture and then you elevate them to make them be better than the rest and put them as king, and as Lord Jamal said, he also put, I think he said something that, what was it? It was nothing else he said. It was something else he said. I think I got it in here. He also showed where I think Eminem wore a mask that he said symbolized like he was wearing blackface, right? And the mask that he had was Will Smith on it, right? And so I'm just wondering the acceleration in clothes, because you heard in the video, right? And I think there was one more. I think there was one more. I think he said something to the fact that he was a guest in hip hop, right? I think he said that Eminem, it was on BLAK TV, I think, and he saw that he was a guest in hip hop. And so that rubbed a lot of white people in the wrong way, because nothing in this country can be solely just black. Yeah, no, even when you try to fight for reparations for black people, you hear a lot of people trying to associate other people who know they come from other locations and geographical areas, but somehow want to be inclusive in the same struggle and plight that me and my people who are BADOS in this land. It's nothing could be solely black. And so when you look at the culture that is considered in the United States, pretty much is a black culture, right? What we consider, well, I mean, we may be the shuck and jive and the ones dancing and everything, but we don't own it. So that's how white people look at it. Well, we had the money. If we didn't build it, you couldn't do it. And he's done it, and he's better than the rest of you. And Lord Jamal tried to make it plain that he said, well, technically, you only got it because of record sales. 2, because, he's white and so forth, and they support you. And there's way more white people. So, I mean, really, can you say because somebody sells more when they have a bigger, fan base than the average rapper, that, again, the black rapper has to do a crossover? So let's just say that rubbed a lot of those that were white in the wrong way. And he has I think it's Yadamin Godcast. Some of y'all might have seen that, right? And so, knowing he was there at the Black Lady Theater, again, because they made sure to get him in that, clip. And I think they're trying to fight. As a matter of fact, there's some knowledge as to in real estate that you have to look at how they did what they did, and did they do something that would be considered unethical in the way they did it. And what I did is I went and got a little information, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you that information as to, there's certain ways how you supposed to, again, according to real estate, this is the way it's supposed to be done. But again, there is some shenanigans in the whole scenario when it comes to the founder and the people who end up becoming the guardians, to where you see the individual in the clip say he is, and they had him as the owner. I think I got the clip. Do we got the clip of that? He posted the cat that was the owner. See if we got that on there. So, because I don't want to just say that and not be able to show that, because I don't think we even have Judge John L. Phillips Jr. We didn't even put a picture of him in there. So we're really not doing this, correctly. And I want to, apologize for not having that. But I do think I have the brother that was the owner. So let me see if I can get him, put him back in there, because he is the owner. But the way they saying that there is no documents to prove it, but then it's documented that the lawyers were doing underhandedness, and then the people who were, matter of fact, the judicial procedure where they was talking about giving him guardianship was a person who he worked with as a judge. So there could have been some, animosity. There could be some jealousy in that. Again, the lawyer that ended up representing him seemed to have been the treasurer, that according to what I read was the treasurer of the person he was running for in 2001. That same individual, Himes, ended up putting an investigation, and they end up declaring him incompetent, and because of his dementia, and so they having him where he couldn't even take care of stuff, and it was kind of strange. And when I was reading it, I was like, wow, man, this is really deep. But look at how in this black corner, this YouTube, so hard for many of us to maintain. And when you really look at it, they may not think they're suppressed. Like, let's say other channels than myself, because again, I've been there for going on 8 years. Again, there used to be a time where I could get 275,000 views, 50,000, 30,000. Then after I made the April 1st, 2014 video that, would be considered viral in the black corner. And then the suppression came where I was can't even get 100 views no matter what. How can a person can't get past 100 views when he has 2.9 thousand subscribers, and those 700 of them say, when you drop your videos, inform me. So how can I not get past 100 if there's no tinkering, right? Tinkering inside to suppress me. And that's what that is. So the same thing here was based on the simple fact that the judge didn't have no children, didn't have no wife. If there was a will, nobody can prove it. Everything that is done is done within the same system that he once worked. So now that that's been taken from them, I think we don't have that, huh? That's strange. I swear we had that, but we don't have that. So I can't show who the brother that was the owner in there. But in the article I seen what he probably was saying about Clarence, and I believe that's probably somebody who he's related to. Let me see if I got that anywhere. The brother's name, I'm surprised I don't have that. I know I should have had that in here, but that's okay. For those who might be interested, you might go and find more information on that. But so let me go ahead and let me do this and give you this information on, maybe you might be able to figure out what part of the situation that they're in that the game is playing. Because see, I always been saying this, that there's a lot of people who believe in black economics, self-determination, and I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm not saying that at all. But I always said that always got a back door to regardless. I mean, when we look at what took place in Oklahoma, the bombing and how they destroyed our ancestors and the stuff and took their, just burnt the whole because of their thrivingness, they always got a back door for you, right? So let's listen to how the game is played according to what they say, right? And you determine, because I'm not going to determine it for you. I'm just let you hear when it talks about foreclosures and those processes, and you tell me what you hear, what you believe. So check this out. I'm reading it for you. Check this out. Now, accordingly, there are three general types of foreclosure proceedings. One is a non-judicial, two, a judicial, and strict. Okay? One, two, or all three may be available. Specific provisions and procedures for each vary from state to state. Now, a non-judicial foreclosure in some states allow non-judicial foreclosures. Now, what a non-judicial foreclosure is, procedures to be used when the security instrument contains a power of sale clause. In non-judicial foreclosures or closures, no court action is required. So I'm going to say that again. If out of the three general classifications, I don't want to say classification, but the general proceedings in foreclosures, right? There's non-judicial, there's judicial, and strict. So a non-judicial foreclosure, if there's an instrument that contains a power of sale clause, then there's no court action is required. A judicial foreclosure allows the property to be sold by court order after the mortgage has been given sufficient public notice. When a borrower defaults, the lender may accelerate the due date to the remaining principal balance, along with all overdue interest, penalties, and administration costs. The lender's attorneys then can file a suit to foreclose the lien. After presentations of the fact in court, the property is ordered sold, a public sale is advertised and held, and the real estate is sold to the highest bidder. So when you talk about a strict foreclosure, although judicial foreclosures is the prevalent practice, it is still possible to have some states for a lender to acquire mortgage property through a strict foreclosure process. First, appropriate notice must be given to the delinquent borrower. Second, once the proper papers have been prepared and recorded, the court establishes a deadline by which time the balance of the defaulted debt must be paid in full. If the borrower does not pay off the loan by the date, the court simply awards full legal title to the lender. No sale takes place. There's also another process in foreclosure called deed in lieu of foreclosure. As an alternative to foreclosure, a lender may accept a deed in lieu of foreclosure from the borrower. This is sometimes known as a friendly foreclosure because it is carried out by mutual agreement rather than by lawsuit. The major disadvantage of the deed of lieu is that the mortgagor takes the real estate subject to all juniors' lieu. In a foreclosure action, all junior liens are eliminated. Also, by accepting a deed in lieu of foreclosure, the lender usually loses any rights pertaining to FHA or private mortgage insurance or VA guarantees. Finally, a deed in lieu of foreclosure is still considered an adverse element in the borrower's credit history. Then there's the redemption. Most states give defaulting borrowers a chance to redeem their property through the equitable rights of redemption. I'm going to say that again. Equitable right of redemption. If after default but before the foreclosure sale, the borrower or any other person who has an interest in the real estate, such as another creditor, pays the lender the amount in default plus cost, the debt will be reinstated and regular payments may be resumed. In some cases, the person who redeems may be required to repay the accelerated loan in full. If some persons other than the mortgagor or trustor redeems the real estate, the borrower becomes responsible to that person for the amount of the redemption. Some states also allow defaulted borrowers a period in which to redeem their real estate after the sale. During this period, which may be as long as 1 year, the borrower has a statutory right of redemption. The mortgagor who can raise the necessary funds to redeem the property within the statutory period pays the redemption money to the court because the debt was paid from the proceeds of the sale. The borrower can take possession free and clear of the former default loan. The court may appoint a receiver to take charge of the property, collect rents, and pay operating expenses during the redemption period. Okay. Accordingly, there's no statutory right of redemptions in certain states. It depends on which state you are in. Some says 30 days after the judgment is entered. If the property has been abandoned or is vacant. Could be also the equitable right of redemption to avoid loss of the mortgage real estate may due or for some period of 7 months after the date of service of the mortgage or after the first publication date. Depending on what state you're in, statutory rights of redemption, the statutory rights of reinstatement. This option is applicable when the defaulting mortgagor wishes to cure the default and reinstate the loan as if no acceleration had occurred. The mortgagor has a right to exercise this statutory right for a period of 90 days after service of summons of publication date. At the lender's discretion expressed through an attorney, the right of reinstatement may be extended to run as long as the equitable right of redemption. Okay? Then they have talked about also about deficiency judgment. When a default is not cured by the redemption or reinstatement, the entry of a decree of foreclosure will lead to judicial sale of the property, usually called a share sale. Each defendant to the suit must be given written personal notice of the sale, and public notice of the sale must be published in a newspaper of general circulation. The successful bidder at the sale receives a certificate of sale, not a deed. Only after the sale is confirmed by the court will the certificate holder receive a sheriff deed. The foreclosure sale may not produce enough cash to pay the loan balance in full after deducting expenses and accrue unpaid interest. In this case, where permitted by law, the mortgagee may be entitled to a personal judgment against the borrower for the unpaid balance. Such a judgment is a deficiency judgment. It also may be obtained against any endorsers or guarantors of notes and against any owners of the mortgage property who assume the debt by written agreement. However, if any monies remain from the foreclosure sale after paying the debt in any other lien, such as second mortgage or mechanics lien, expenses and interest, these proceeds are paid to the borrower, or proceeds are paid to the borrower. Strict foreclosures does not always provide a deficiency judgment.
Controversy is brewing in Crown Heights after the Black Lady Theater suddenly shut down and its leadership says they've been locked out. And now they're rallying to take back control of what they claim is rightfully theirs. News 12 Brooklyn's Tony Chow brings us more.
There has been an attack on our institution.
One that goes back 36 years. Since 1984, the Black Lady Theater has been home to activism and the arts, like hip-hop artist Lord Jamar's Unanimine Godcast.
Spaces like this are few and far between. Black Lady Theater is a fixture in this community.
But now its future is up in the air, with the city marshal locking the doors and seizing the property. According to city records, it was purchased in a foreclosure sale last February.
We were never notified of this supposed sale. Government agencies denied us the opportunity to defend ourselves and our property.
The theater's leaders say its founder, Judge John Phillips Jr., entrusted them with the property before he died in 2008. City records don't show that paper trail. An omission, theater supporters say, was done intentionally and maliciously.
They have used defective paperwork and administrative tactics to displace us.
With nowhere left to turn, the theater supporters vowed to continue fighting for what they say is a vital part of the community.
We need the Black Lady Theater. She has been a mother to the motherless. She has been a home to the homeless.
Now it's the theater that finds itself without a home. In Crown Heights, Tony Chow, News 12, Brooklyn.
All right, so that is the story that has taken place with the Black Lady Theater in Brooklyn, New York. And again, what we have to look at here is that as the information that I just gave you, as into real estate and the processes that it takes to go through a foreclosure, it looks like that there may be a year from the time of the foreclosure, as one part where I know that I talked about, where there was a sheriff's sale and the person redeems a certificate of sale, but they don't get the sheriff deed. And I think there is, through the redemptive right, or I think equitable rights of redemption, I think there's 1 year, but I think that's from state to state, have different legislation and laws based on that. So it looks like whoever the person, as News 12 said, they called the number. Remember in the beginning they talked about they called the number and it's a lady picked up and then hung up when she found out that it was the news. So what I'm saying is, due to, and again I'll say this, that what happened with Lord Jamal and Eminem may not have to be direct to what's going on with, but again, when we speak truths and people who seem to cling on to BADOS's heritage, what they say, culture vultures, who don't create nothing but always sucking on the tit, trying to survive because they're not creative to come on nothing of their own. And the things that had been said, well, somebody accelerated to want to have control, and then now you have to come to them, and according to the way the process is, either you come with all the money, or how that whole process took place. But I guess this is to be continued. I'm pretty sure there's going to be more information, and there's more information do come out about it. You know, we at Black MINDZ News will report according to what we hear and do follow-ups on that. So just wanted to bring some attention. Again, this is supposed to be Black History Month, and a pillar like that can't go unnoticed by the people. And again, what we have to learn from this is, as I said earlier in this broadcast, having inheritable property, willing stuff to, your family. We have to make sure people have knowledge of, and I think sometimes people don't want to have it because I think sometimes people kind of remember the MINDZ, but I don't know if that's something that but I remember doing a story not too long ago where I think it was in New York as well, where some young shorties, mama had insurance policy, and they end up doing the wrong, right? Also that they could flash the cash and do videos. So sometimes people want to be secretive about certain things, but in the end, if not all the I's, dots, and T's are crossed, and it's something that somebody got their eye set or believe that what is inheritable is not supposed to be beneficial for you or others, then these are the type of things that can happen. And you would think that a person in the position he was, to undermine him, they had to deem him incapacitated to run his own affairs, and then they controlled and manipulated from there. And again, as they talked about in 2012, and the lawyer that was supposedly representing him was actually the individual treasurer that the person he ran against. And so we have to be mindful. Again, history is not just so much knowing the stories, it's also learning the lessons so that we don't follow those same patterns and try to avoid those obstacles and traps. But we're already in a trap. So we have to be treading lightly and be very aware. But again, is anything 100% proof? So again, this is Black Minds News, and I want to bring that information to you. Until, let's see, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming over here and clicking on the video and giving time out. Hopefully that you like what's over here. Again, we're back. Going to be pumping them. I got a lot of backup I got to make up for stuff that I wasn't doing. So, again, like, share, comment, dislike. It's all good. It's EEOC over here. And so, until the next show, y'all, are we ready to do this? Go on, crank it up. Go on, crank it. Let's get it. All right. So, again, I want to thank each and every one of you. And, you know how we say it over here. When you see your brother, what's good, brother? When you see your sister, what's good, sister? If you can't do that much, just give the universal nod. You know what's up. You know how we do, right? Again, you got to remember, we are living in a day and time where there's some people who are seeking for our demise. So it is incumbent that we, each and every one of us, become my brother and my sister's keeper. Yeah, I know some of us got some stuff stuck in us, but we got to learn how to get some of that up out of us. We are the only ones we got. Are we not seeing how the board, if you was watching a chess game, are you seeing how things are lining up? So, some of us got allies out here. But you who got allies that you trust so much and think they're going to be down in the foxhole when and if shit get hot, you better ask your allies a couple questions. One, have they ever heard of John Brown? And if they heard of John Brown, ask them, how come white folks ain't never had a movie about John Brown? A man who decided to take him and sacrifice him and his boys for the betterment, for the mistreatment of black folks. And he the worst white man that ever lived in the land. They talk about abolitionists, but this one here went all out. Two, if John Brown is real, that's what you ask this story to try to make it seem like that. See, it was just one that went all out to help black folks. So again, I want to say peace, love, until my next show, y'all. Till the next show.
You